Hey, so if you're joining us, welcome to the More Moments podcast, not the Breakthrough Moments podcast. I am your guest host, Dallas Amsden, filling in today for Jeff Koziatek. Are you ready for your More Moments questions?
I'm feeling pretty good at this point.
Let's jump into it. Question number one, Jeff, Batman utility belt or fanny pack?
I'm gonna go with the utility belt.
That's it? That's all I get? Why?
Yeah. Well, my wife's got the fanny pack covered, and for me, I'm a cargo pants, cargo shorts kind of guy, and so I like having multiple places to put stuff, and I get that with the utility belt. The fanny pack is just one big bag, and then you can lose everything. I'd rather lose things in multiple pockets rather than lose it in one big bag.
Sure. All right. So so the Jefferangs instead of the Batarangs inside of your utility belt. I love it. All right. Question number two. Favorite movie?
Man, so I've been thinking about this, and for a while it was Shakespeare in Love. For a while it was Empire Strikes Back because of the different settings and the colors and the story. I really enjoyed Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman, that story arc, that was fun. I don't think I can answer my own question, Dallas.
Oh, wow. Well, how about this? How about this? Take it down a notch. Maybe favorite, let's go with favorite drama. Is it still Shakespeare in Love? Or is there a new one that's replaced that versus favorite comedy?
Ooh, see, now we're mixing it up. I'm going to go back to the original question. What is your favorite movie? But I'm going to expand it to what is your favorite movie trilogy? And say that's probably Lord of the Rings.
My man. I knew you'd be there with me.
And followed closely by The Hobbit. Being able to watch those movies with my kids and talk about, listen, this is, when we hold on to anger, when we hold on to bitterness and resentment, look at what happens. Look at what happens when we pick a goal. We don't know how we're going to get there. Does that sound familiar? And we just go after it and see what happens. It's not always the plan that we expected, but if we have a really clear end game and then we surround ourselves with quality people and go, there's so many lessons in both of those. So I would say The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogies.
Lord of the Rings is definitely up there on my list of top trilogies. It's just poetry. Those first three movies are poetry. The moments with Gandalf it's so good. Yeah, Frodo. When he's talking with Frodo, I've learned it's the little things. Lines like "Our quest stands on the edge of a knife." Oh my gosh, so many great moments.
Edge of a knife.
Yeah. All right, cool. So then from favorite movie to favorite quote.
I'm thinking that my favorite quote is probably most often attributed to Maya Angelou. People don't remember what you say or how you say it. They remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
That comes up over and over and over again for me in my coaching, in my speaking, and really in the way we parent our kids as far as tone and where your heart is when you're communicating. So that one has always been here. And I'd say that's followed closely by Herb Kelleher's quote, the business of business is people.
The business of business is people.
Yeah, it's not the product, it's not the service, it's your people. And if we're taking care of the people, then everything else shakes out. But if we're not taking care of business, if we're not taking care of our people, if the focus is on the product, if the focus is on the service, if the focus is on customer service but not our internal people, then everything falls apart.
You don't want it to fall apart is what you don't want.
No.
No, that wasn't even good
was
either.
on my list for a while, but then that I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
I rewatched it last year. It is still a top 5 movie for me when it comes to drama. Again, poetry. It's a poem. Watching that, it's an epic poem, and I rewatched it this last. Yeah, it's so good. It still holds up, in spite of Mel Gibson not being, who we thought he was. for a long time. I believe that he's probably a better person today, though, than he was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's my hope, is that none of us stay in our past. How about that? Speaking of hoping the best for people, here's the question I have for you next. What is the best advice you have ever received?
Excellent segue.
Right?
The best advice. There's two pieces. The one piece has had a really big impact on my marriage, and it revolves around money. A long time ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about cash, and he said, "Listen, you should, if you're gonna give, but don't make it a loan. Don't let people borrow with the idea of coming back, of bringing it back to you. If you can help them, and just make it a free gift with no expectations, no strings attached." Said if you give money to somebody with the expectation that they're going to pay it back later, he's like, that is a recipe for disaster when it comes to relationships and for the status of your heart and how you're looking at each other. And he's like, don't ever do that. So if you can give, great, but if you can't, don't. And so this idea of giving without expectations, I have taken out of money and I've put it into the context of my marriage. You know, if I can serve my wife without any expectations, that's the goal. I mean, so many times we say, well, I'm going to do the dishes so that you can go do whatever. We're like, no. I'm just going to do the dishes free and clear. I'm just going to clean the house free and clear. There are no expectations. That's not always the easiest to live by, but that has made a huge impact on my life when I do that. The second piece of advice is something I got more recently, and that's the idea of rupture and repair. And we talk about this all the time with our kids.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it will stick. But
in them or in you?
Both. Because it's easy to get distracted and caught up in circumstances, right?
Yeah, sure.
We had this marriage counselor once tell us that all marriages are cycles of rupture and repair. People are human. Most of us, we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Things aren't always going to go quite right. There are going to be ruptures. And he said that the marriages that are successful are not the ones that try to avoid the ruptures because they're inevitable.
Sure.
He said the successful marriages are the ones that get really good at repairing, at coming back together.
Yeah.
And that just, you can't always control when the ruptures happen. You can't always see them coming. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But what you can do is really focus on the repair and getting really good at those systems and those approaches. And I've found that letting our kids know, and really between me and my wife and between me and my colleagues and my friends, saying, hey, we're not always going to get it right. Sometimes we're going to do something and it's going to cause some damage. But as long as we understand that, we're trying to grow together, then we can see the mistake for what it is, not who I am or not who our relationship is, and then deal with that and move forward together. That's been huge.
That's great, man. That's why this is the More Moments podcast instead of the Breakthrough Moments podcast. That is great advice.
Funny thing, as long as we're here, there's this book that's probably backwards, Blueprint for Value, written by some guy. But there's a habit 45 is pay once. And when I wrote this, it was all about paying for a mistake one time as opposed to beating yourself up over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? But after I understood the concept of rupture and repair, I'm like, it also is a blueprint for how to do that, because it talks about acknowledging what's happened, owning your part, accepting the consequences, moving to reconciliation, and then moving forward together. I think so many times people look at repair and they say, we just need to acknowledge what happened and now we're going to move forward together. And they skip the 3 middle steps. But if you're going to have a successful repair, you have to do all 5. Acknowledge, own, accept, reconcile, and then we move forward.
That's good. That's good, man. Love it. Love it. Let me keep it going before we go back to our favorite movies. Your favorite childhood toy. Favorite childhood toy.
I'm going to say Legos. Legos was my favorite childhood toy because you would back then, they didn't have all the crazy different Lego pieces that they have today. And the sets weren't themed, so you weren't building like a Pirates of the Caribbean thing or like a Star Wars ship. So they were pretty bare bones. And you would buy these sets. And initially I would start building the sets, but then I stopped pretty fast. And then I started just getting sets because I wanted the pieces inside. And then I would make my own stuff. And it was just so... It was just a lot of fun. I mean, a chance to get creative, to think, how are we going to build this? How are we going to build this castle, this car, this vehicle? Yeah, I love that. And then when I eventually had children and they got into Legos, that was a lot of fun.
Building Lego sets with my son. He's 12 right now, but for years, that was the way that we would just spend a ton of time together. Was new Lego set. Let's jump in together. We built this last year. We built the. He was a huge Ninjago fan, and this was the Ninjago City Gardens, and it was like 6,000 pieces, just crazy, insane. 4 levels. Took us about 14 hours in total over 2 days, and he definitely has surpassed my Lego skills at this point. So.
Well, the crazy thing about Legos is that they've created a whole bunch of new pieces.
Yeah.
And so when I started building with my kid, I was like, wait a minute, I don't know all the notes. Right. And so we've gone back to building the sets, which is something I didn't do as a kid.
Right.
But I'm building the sets to learn the notes, to learn how to play the music with the new framework.
Yeah.
And that's been really fascinating as like a life lesson. So to think back to when I was a kid, it's like learn the basics and then go make jazz.
Yeah.
And so now we're learning the new basics and then we're going to go out, except I haven't taken apart my Batmobiles or my Optimus Prime.
I wouldn't take apart the Optimus Prime. I'd leave a few of those sets. Yeah, I'd leave a few of those sets together.
Right.
And you actually live really close to that Lego store in Kirkwood. You're close to that. I forget the minifig shop.
Yeah,
So
I've not allowed myself to go in.
It's probably best if you don't. I went in there one time and thought, I could spend too much money here. I like what you said there about you're relearning how to play some of the notes. I mean, I think that's great advice, even just in life when we take on a new skill. I think we think in business or in life or in relationships, we have to accelerate to mastery. And it has nothing to do with that if we master the basics. I just taught on this with a team this last week. There's this great quote from Michael Jordan that said, the minute you get away from fundamentals, whether it's in sports or in schoolwork or in life or in relationships, the bottom can fall out of your game at any point. And I just love that idea that we need to just master the basics and run those over and over and over again. So that's great advice. Onward to the next question, though, because we are here in the more moments. So let's get more answers from you, Jeff. Number 6, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
At first, it was a fighter pilot.
Nice.
Then
Somebody watched Top Gun growing up.
I did. We can just totally go off on a tangent there, and I'm trying not to.
Don't go off on a tangent. I wanted to be a Transformer. No.
Talk to me, Goose. Tell me all about the Transformer.
No. Go ahead. You wanted to be a fighter pilot. Let me bring you back.
Yeah. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. Was huge into planes, and then that shifted to astronaut. And I went to space camp, and I was like, but not so much astronaut didn't last long. It quickly shifted from astronaut to I want to design the craft that carried the first manned craft to go to Mars. Like I was like, that's what I want to do, because I loved science. I still love science, physics, math, all that stuff. But then I was having all of this success out on the baseball field. And I was pitching and throwing crazy stuff, and I was like, I want to be a professional baseball player. And that was huge. This is kind of a journey, but it ends in a very key spot. So baseball was it. I was going to go for that. And then somebody said, no. My best friend said, no, none of us are ever going to make it. We're in a low league. There's no way. And I was like, here's my dream. Go ahead and crush it and stomp on it. Yeah. But then that shifted to acting. And then I threw myself into performance. And I was like, by the time I got out of high school, I was fully committed to a career in the performing arts.
All right. That's great.
Yeah,
So now that you're on the other side of the what do you want to be when you grow up, I still think that's an intriguing question now. Jeff, what do you want to be when you grow up now? But what brings you joy? This is a hard one.
No, it is not.
Good. Well, the reason I say that, before you give your answer,
Tell me, Dallas, why is this a hard question for
because
you?
I think a lot of people confuse joy with happiness. And I think there's been a big push in recent years to find happiness and find your bliss. And so I think there's a difference between circumstantial happiness and internal joy. And so
well, then, how do you define those? What's your definition for happiness? What's your definition for joy?
I think happiness is more moment to moment emotional states of, which is, again, defining this from the place of what I've read a lot on. I have 10 books over in my bookshelf on happiness because I quested on this a couple of years ago. Not my books, other people's books. But I went on this pursuit of what happiness is, and it really has a lot to do with this moment to moment awareness and what your circumstances are doing to dictate your emotional well-being. So it's kind of like an exterior in focus, a lot of the things I read on happiness, versus joy being an interior expression that focuses outwardly. So the happiness comes from the outside in, joy comes from the inside out. And that's why I think it's difficult, because I think a lot of people get it mixed up with, well, if I do this, will I be happy now? If I do that, will I be happy now? And it's like, stop being happy now and start being full of joy into every circumstance. So that's why I differentiate.
Can you give an example
two.
of an internal joy piece?
Peace or joy? Those are two.
Can
no,
you
I'm just
give
kidding.
me an internal
Yes.
joy example?
Yes. I know. So for the listeners out there, I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. I believe that Jesus was the Son of God, is the Son of God. So for me, the joy comes in knowing my identity as a son of God, as a child of God. And so there could be this sickness that could happen. It doesn't change my identity. There could be this relational conflict that happens. It doesn't change my identity. There could be a mistake I made. It doesn't change my identity. And though the circumstances might suck around that identity, it doesn't mean that I suck. And it took a long time for me to find that place of inner joy and inner peace to actually realize the circumstances don't define me. The situation or what I achieve or what I accomplish does not define my value. My value comes in who God made me to be. And so I can be joyful in every moment. And while I feel the ups and downs of emotions, it doesn't change who I am. They are all part of the expression of Dallas. Versus happiness is, I got a new TV and I'm really excited and really happy about it.
So
That's
joy
kind of
for
a
you
trite
is
comparison, but
joy is knowing your foundation
yes.
and being connected to your creator.
Yeah, and joy is it's like with my children, it's the expression of love that happens in spite of what happens with my children, in spite of the choices. I love my youngest son, Arrow, in spite of how he performs or behaves. I love all of them, but I'm using him as an example. And he doesn't have to do a thing that makes me love him.
Unearned.
And when unearned, unachieved, unmerited. And when I realize, that's the same love that God has toward me, that fills me with joy. Arrow does not question my love for him, even when he thinks I'm mad at him or vice versa. He doesn't question that there's this innate relationship. And so, I think there's an internal value. I believe there's a book on blueprints for value that you can talk about your compass and washing your brain and all of that.
This one?
That one. You are not interviewing me right now. I'm interviewing you, and you got me to talk about joy here for the last 4 minutes. So let's pause.
I'm a coach.
I know, but I'm putting the mirror back on you, dude. What brings you joy?
Wow. Okay. Well, then I'm going to expand my answer to include joy and happiness. Because when I'm editing photography, I'm shooting photos and editing photos, that brings me a lot of happiness, happiness. I shoot a lot of really close-up stuff of nature and architecture, but I also do occasionally shoot family photos, and to see families smiling and connecting, that fills me. The other thing that really fills me is my kids whenever they put in effort to something. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could just sit here and watch this all day. Like if they're playing a soccer game or a tennis match or hockey, they don't even have to win. They don't even have to score a point. As long as they're putting forth the effort, everything else doesn't matter. That I'm like, yes, that fills me with incredible joy. And then, when I'm able to serve my audience as a keynote speaker, or when I'm able to walk alongside someone as their performance coach, and when they have that moment where their belief shifts and their behavior starts to change and they start to get the results that they wanted, and then the results that they didn't think were ever possible, and not because I told them what to do, because I don't do that, but because I held a space for them to assess and grow and modify and shift, and then because they've taken ownership of their choices, they're moving forward. That's really cool.
Love it.
Yeah. And I guess the last, if we're going to speak on internal joy, as a follower of Christ myself, going through challenges or going through victories and feeling God's presence and God's peace, no matter what, has allowed me to experience a level of joy to weather all kinds of storms, especially the ones for the last 5 years. So that's been huge.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So what brings you dread? The opposite here. Let's talk about that, baby.
I'll keep this one short.
Okay.
I would say disconnection. I am definitely wired to connect. I believe that I'm supposed to love my neighbors. I love myself. And one of my core values is belonging. That's a really big value for me. So if I'm feeling left out or not included, or really not cared about, fills me with dread. I don't like it. No, I don't.
No, I get it. And that speaks a lot also to you, as performers tend to be inclusionary by nature. And so that makes perfect sense. So question number 9 here, we got 2 questions left. We're almost out of time, but I want to make sure I give you the time to park on these, Jeff. What do you want to accomplish, but you cannot do on your own? What do you want to accomplish, but you cannot do on your own?
Man, I'm going to have to steal an answer from one of my guests. I mean, the answer really is everything. Everything. I believe in teamwork. I believe in collaboration. I talk things out. Whenever I'm growing my business, I usually speak in we're going to do this next. And I'm saying we, even as a solo performer, as juggling Jeff, because I'm thinking about my wife and everything that she's doing and we're doing together. I'm thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about the guy that, Mark, that helps me with my website. I'm thinking about, my coach. And now as a performance coach, as a speaker, there's an impact that I want to make in the world, but it only happens if I make an offer and then somebody receives the offer, and then we go. But if nobody receives the offer, then I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping to empower and encourage people in the world. So if my vision is to empower and encourage others, the only way that gets done is with everybody else. And so yeah, everything.
I love it. Everything. It's not, by the way, it's not cheating if you borrow an answer and give that person the credit. That's
Yes.
fine. And I love the answer, so it works. So final question here of your top 10 questions in the More Moments podcast. What do you hope people will say about you after you're gone?
This question has come up a lot lately. After I'm gone, I hope that people say that Jeff cared and he built others up, that he was an encourager, that he confronted the difficult stuff, and he went in to be a help, to build people up and not tear others down.
That's good. That's good, man. Encourager. I love it. Well, I can definitely say you've been that in my life. And I know I've seen you be that in other people's lives too. So thank you for being an encourager. And yeah, that's good stuff, man.
Then I can check out. Thank you.
That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to take a moment here and honor Jeff, our guest today, who's normally your host. But thank you, Jeff, for those answers. And everybody else, if you do want to find a way to connect with Jeff, I get to plug his stuff, even though it's his podcast. You can actually connect with Jeff online for sure, through Instagram and social. But the easiest way to see all the ways to connect with him is to go to his website, coreauthenticity.com. That's coreauthenticity.com. You can get that book, Blueprint for Value. You can not only find out where Jeff is speaking next, but you can request Jeff to come and speak to your team, your school, your business, as well as all of the coaching opportunities that he offers. So connect with Jeff Koziatek at coreauthenticity.com. Jeff, thank you so much for being on your podcast today.
Dallas, thanks for having me. But before we go, you got to tell me more about you. Like, where can people go to find out more about the amazing, the incomparable Dallas Amsden?
Well, so you can also find me online on all the socials at Dallas Amsden. That's Dallas like Texas, right? Amsden, AMSDEN, AMSDEN. The easiest way to do that is just on Facebook is the best place to connect with me. Also, I have a new podcast that's starting here at the beginning of 23 called The Speaker's Experience, where I'm talking with other public speakers about their experience so that up-and-coming speakers can learn from those experiences. So that's going to be coming up soon. And communicate2succeed.com. Communicate, the number 2, succeed.com. I run a speakers academy as well, and I love doing what I do. I love working with introverts and helping them be their authentic self on stage and in life. So good stuff. Thanks, Jeff.
Good stuff. No, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. This has been a pleasure. I've always wanted to be on this show, and now that I've been here, it feels complete.
Yeah, we're gonna swap and have you interview me on the Speaker's Experience too.
Outstanding. Dallas, you rock. Thank you so much for your time. Go team!